Hi, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. I hope you enjoyed this Game Industry Insight, a look behind the scenes at game development. And be sure to subscribe and you can pitch future video topics. Alright, for today's Industry Insight, we're going to be talking about the topic of review bombs and what this means for game developers and how it's been gaining some traction lately. Now, if you missed the news or know what we're talking about, what we've been seeing over the last year or so, or even probably back since like 2015, has been Steam users or users of any major store site essentially flooding a game with negative reviews as a show of protest against something. And the idea, of course, is that this is basically the closest consumers of video games have to, I guess, picketing or striking when it comes to either an unlawful practice or something that they don't disagree with. And over the last few years, there's been several big examples of this. There's, of course, the No Man's Sky incident, Batman Arkham City and the problems I had with the PC, and very recently there's been cases such as Grand Theft Auto 5 with removing Open 4 or shutting down the mod support there, Nier Automata, I believe, or just Nier in general, as well as other games from Square Enix who promise a Chinese localization which was not in their release when it was ported over to China. And in these cases, we're not just talking about like a few reviews or 100 reviews. We're talking about reviews in the thousands. And this is either reviewers who have left positive reviews changing them to negative, or people who have never left a review on a game and then switching it or making it a negative review. And this can be very startling, to say the least. And we have seen some major cases of this. Like, there's been graphs showing like the review scores going like that, basically. And it represents a very interesting discussion in terms of consumers' rights when it comes to issues like this. And it goes back to a topic that I talked about a few months ago, who knows at this point, when we were talking regarding games as a service or long-term support of a game. And I'm kind of curious to hear what your thoughts are, especially considering the audience here on the YouTube channel and on Game Wisdom is a cross-section of developers and consumers. Now, when it comes to this issue, the main reason why people do this is that it's very noticeable. If someone says that we're boycotting a game, we're not going to buy it, you're not really noticing that in a sea of, who knows, hundreds of thousands or even millions of sales. But people are going to notice if all of a sudden your review goes from being overly positive to mixed or even downright negative. And when someone looks on the Steam page or on a store page and they see 1 star or not recommended reviews as far as the eye can see, that's a very big deal. And like we've seen, especially with the rise of now Steam Direct and Steam's changes to the review algorithms, those negative reviews can come back to hurt you in a big way. Especially if someone is searching for your game or just so happens to find it and immediately notices very negative or overwhelmingly negative right here, they may just decide not to buy the game. Or they may see all those negative reviews and go, I don't think I trust this, and go away. And this is a very big point. Even with like other products, one negative review out of 50 positive isn't that big of a deal. But if 500 people are all saying the same thing about your product, chances are that's going to come back to hurt you. And like I said, this is a very interesting case between consumers and developers. Now, when we talked about the idea of refunding games and consumer protection, when I discussed that, I said that it is very important for consumers to have an out, to have some way to defend themselves against either unlawful practices or just a bad developer or someone trying to sleaze their way out of their money. And as we've seen, there have been many games sadly like that on Steam. We talked about the shovelware, the acid flips, or just simply releasing a game in a broken or unfinished state. The Nier Automata example, even I think Rise of the Tombware, all had this as well in China, that Square Enix promised that these games would be localized to Chinese. But when you release a game in another market like that and it's not, that is very bad. It would be, again, or actually, there's a good example of this. When they ported over one of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games from China, I think what is it, Toei? I forget the name of the developer off the top of my head, but when they decided to bring that to the PC, they only brought it over in the Chinese and I think Japanese localization, but they're selling it on an American store. And like we said, that is not a good thing to do, especially when you're trying to appeal to multiple markets. And the issue or the beauty of the refund policy has been a way for consumers to fight back. If someone buys a game and it's unfinished, features are not working, or it just is broken completely, they can refund that and get their money. But here's the point where this kind of review bombing gets very tricky. What happens if a game is changed 3 months down the line, a year and a half, 3 years down the line, and it's changed in a way that is worse for the consumer? At this point, the refund policy is not going to work. Valve is not going to let you refund a game that you've bought 2.5 to 3 years ago. And like we said, when it comes to games as a service and long-term game support, a game can theoretically change from launch to a year to more than that. Payday 2 being a major example. I know a few of you thought I forgot about that. But last year, Payday 2 was a subject of a review bomb when when Overkill added in the microtransactions for safes. And people were deservedly pissed off about that. And again, this was a game that this was added in about probably a little about 2 years after its initial launch. And again, this was something that there was no signs of it happening, no warning from the developers. And as we talked about when this was first unveiled, they even said at the start that they weren't going to go that route. So, if all these people were arguing, and deservedly so, about this, what recourse do they have to show their disapproval? Again, we're way beyond the review period. And it worked. Overkill eventually rescinded the change, and the same can also be said of what was told about Paradox Software raising the price of their DLC, which after a few days of once again review bombing, it was reversed. And that's the good side of things. But here's where things, again, this is where I'm kind of two minds about this. Like we've said, reviews, especially to smaller developers, can mean the difference of life and death. Especially when you're a small company, and 50 reviews could might as well be like 5 million reviews for a small development team. So what happens if someone disagrees with your choice and basically decides to, weaponize the review policy? And we've seen, unfortunately, situations of in the past of the double-edged sword of community interaction. If you treat your fans well or they agree with you, you're all golden. But if either you do something that annoys them or you can't do something that keeps them happy, they can turn on you. And there's nothing more damning for a small developer to wake up to find all their positive reviews are now negative. Because not only does it put the current game in jeopardy, but it can also affect future sales. And in some cases, especially for smaller developers, this is kind of like the salting the earth policy. Because if you want the developer to change or do something, killing their review scores and hurting them from getting more sales, again, it's kind of like a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And that's kind of where, again, I'm of two minds about this. It's great that consumers have a legitimate way to show displeasure and fight back against unlawful practices. But the question is just, at what are all the situations where this can be valid? Is it, on one extreme, if a developer releases a broken or unfinished game? Or can it be used if consumers demand that the developer add something or change something that they can't or won't do? Like we said, when it comes to game development, at the end of the day, it's still very much a dictatorship in a matter of speaking. It's the developer's purpose is to create the game. And at the end of the day, it's their vision that they ultimately have to put out. But if consumers can basically hold review scores hostage like this, is that going to lead to more trouble down the line? Especially for newer developers who may not have the money or the resources to enact grand changes. Now, with that said, though, I know someone will comment at this point, and that for AAA developers like Square Enix or No Man's Sky being published by Sony, that putting out a product, or even WB Interactive, that putting out a product of less than quality or less than their standards deservedly should cause some backlash or some punishment on their part for trying to sell a faulty or unfinished product. And in that case, I am 100% in support. But again, where does the line get drawn in terms of using this as a protest option? And we're about 12 minutes in, and I don't have an easy answer to this. Again, when it comes to the game industry, it's very hard to come up with specific policies or edicts about things going forward. So, to wrap up for today, what do you guys think? Do you think review bombs are a legitimate strategy? Do you think there should be some, rules about what are the, acceptable cases for using something like this? And can you think of another option? Is there another alternative besides review bombing or just boycotting a game? Again, it's not an easy question to answer, but it is one that we will probably have to discuss at some point going forward. But thank you for watching today's Industry Insight. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you have suggestions for any future vlog topics. But otherwise, be sure to check back daily for more design discussions here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And come back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on game development, be sure to check out game-wisdom.com. Follow me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day. And to help support everything that I do, you can find me on Patreon under GWBycer or Game Wisdom. Your donations can help to keep things running, and when we hit some goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy. So, thanks again for watching, and be sure to come back for daily discussions on game design on the Game Wisdom channel.